Hello and welcome to MIP TV. And with me, as always, in the library that seems to be his house, Mr. Bob Cook. Hi, Bob. How are you doing?
Very good. I'm very, very good indeed. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and this is the 50th book review. And there's a bit of a special book review here, isn't there? Because this is one that is about the life and times of Eric Byrne. It's called A Montreal Childhood, and it was written by his son, Terry Byrne. So what's the attraction of this particular book, Bob?
Well, of course, I'm a transaction analyst. I owe my living to Eric Byrne, if you want to put it that way. But of course, it's a wonderful, accessible model. And Eric Byrne really contributed so much to the world of psychotherapy with his model of transaction analysis that I thought I have just got to honor the 50th book of my review, going back to Eric Byrne. About 40 of the books that we've done over the year and a half, going to where we are now, the 50th book, they're all from TA, and they're all about TA and all the concepts of TA. So there is 6 or 7 books outside TA, but I thought for the 50th book, we have to go back to the man himself.
Yes, that's where we started, Bob.
Yeah, so this is A Montreal Childhood. And Eric Byrne died of a double heart attack, 1970, on Carmel Beach. So he was 60 years of age, went far too early. He had three sons, I think. But this book is written by Terry Byrne, who in sort of about 1997 to 2005, he went back to Carmel where the old house was, and he found many books or finished books or old books, notes, ramblings by Eric himself, and he had enough information to put or write or edit this unpublished memoir from Eric Byrne's writings himself, really. So it's by Eric Byrne because they're from his writings, but of course put together by Terry Byrne, and came out in 2010. And it's about his early childhood in Montreal.
Yes, because he was the son of a doctor, wasn't he? He was the son of a doctor. Eric,
Yeah.
If I'm correct.
Eric Byrne, yeah.
Eric Leonard Bernstein.
Correct. That was his name. Jewish.
Yes. So he would have probably changed his name to Byrne because of the amount of anti-Semitism that was around in America in the 60s, I would imagine.
Well, he was brought up in that immigrant population in Montreal. And one of his wonderful contributions, of course, is transaction analysis. Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. He followed the path of his father. And a lot of this book is about his father in many ways, and his father's journey to be a doctor in the early, 1910, 1911, 1912. He actually became a doctor at McGill University. Yeah. And in transaction analysis, you've got the concepts of script, which is life plan, an unconscious life plan. And it's really interesting because the young Eric, of course, here, he followed the script, really, of his father. Mm. He became a doctor. He got his doctorship from the same university in 1935, McGill University. The only difference was that he went on to be a psychiatrist, specialized in psychiatry and pathology and the personality of the mind from a psychiatric view, and he went into to be a working psychiatrist in the army.
Yes,
in the war, and he got a lot of his ideas about ego states from doing the assurance assessments, of course, when he came out of the army. Yeah. But he really did follow the script of his father, and his father died when he was 10.
Oh, Byrne's father died when he was 10, yeah.
So he died, when Eric Byrne was 10, his father died. And his father died at the young age of 39.
Well, that is very young, isn't it?
Yeah, he was in the war as a doctor. First World War, this is. And he died of tuberculosis. He got the Spanish flu. You know, the flu that actually swept the world in 2018 after the First World War.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he died of tuberculosis, and Eric became a bereaved young child at the age of 10. Um, and his mother, Sarah, brought him up. And, when you lose your father who you've adored at the age of 10, I think it really does create a whole developmental change in his script, if you like. But he did go on to be a doctor, the same as his father, as I said, in 35, though he went on to specialize in psychiatry. And actually, in those years, just after the Second World War, he was actually hounded, if you like, by a lot of the American officials in the McCarthy trials, because Eric himself traveled a lot in the 40s from hospital to hospital across the world. He was very interested in following his father's footsteps, I think, and finding new medical ideas. But he got caught up in the McCarthy sort of witch hunt in 1949.
Yeah.
And it took a long time for him to really clear his name in some ways. And
so the McCarthy witch hunts, for those of you who are probably thinking, well, what's that? It was a senator called McCarthy who decided to root out communists. And the witch hunts were basically, they arrested and put in front of a grand jury, which is like, best way of describing a grand jury is it's like a jury of facts. It's like a trial of facts. And they put people in front of a grand jury for being communists. And it's amazing. There's one other person that was questioned by the McCarthy people, and that was Carl Rogers.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Carl Rogers was brought in. It's not surprising because he was taught by William H. Kilpatrick and John Dewey at Columbia.
Wow.
And William H. Kilpatrick was, by any measure, quite left-wing.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I really didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, in this book, an excerpt of this book, Eric talks about when he had to go into court, he had to put a paper bag over his head.
Good.
So because he wouldn't be recognised.
Yeah.
Because it would, if he was recognised, that would be the end of his doctor's career, really.
Yeah.
And he was called Dr. X.
Yes, bizarre. How bizarre it was in America in the 1960s, 1950s, and 1960s.
Yeah, unbelievable. I never knew that about Carl Rogers. But this book really is a journey through. He spends a lot of time in the writings talking about his first 10 years, talking about his idyllic time and how much he adored his father, and talks a lot about his grandparents. And it's a real journey of affection, if you like, in those first 10 years. He had lots of good friends. He was went around with intellectual chums, if you like.
Yeah.
Sounds like he had quite an idyllic. I know he was in that whole anti-Semitic immigrant population.
Yes.
But he sounds like a good time. But his life changed quite drastically when, of course, his father died of tuberculosis. And that changed a lot. And then the book wasn't so idyllic in some ways. But it talks about a lot about those early years, again, going on to be a doctor following in his father's childhood.
Yes, he got a Master of Surgery, didn't he? Master of Surgery.
Yeah, he's quite an amazing person. And, of course, a marvellous contribution to the world of psychotherapy.
Indeed.
Transaction analysis.
Indeed. When you read this book, did you find out anything that you didn't know before?
Oh, many things. I never realised, I didn't realise how much Eric Burns' script followed his father's script.
Yes.
And his father followed the script of his grandfather.
Yes.
And you can see that the script was passed down across the generations. It's very clear. I never realised that at all.
Yeah.
I never realised that he was caught up in the McCarthy trials either. Yeah. And I also never realised how multi-talented he was, being a surgeon, being a psychiatrist, incredibly multi-talented.
He was. I remember one of the quotes that made me kind of smile. He said, "No man is a hero to his wife's psychiatrist."
Yes, that's right. He was. Yeah.
And it kind of made me wonder about what was the subtext of that. I mean, it seems quite obvious, but given the times that he lived in, there's almost quite a feminist perspective to that, I think.
Yes, yes. I mean, he lived in that really early. He after the war, he was, I know he was called up McCarthy's, but he was quite radical.
Yeah.
He was quite radical in his thinkings and his thoughts, and I'm sure if he'd lived past 60, he would have been caught up with the radical movement of the 70s in America.
Yeah.
His closest friend, or one of them, was his prodigal son in the end, Claude Steiner, who was
Yes.
a real radical, a real left-wing radical. And if you read Claude Steiner's book, Script People Live, which we reviewed early on,
Yeah.
his radical thoughts really come out there. Now, the other thing I realized in this book is how he adored his father, and how he came from a very loving family, and
Yes.
how his mother, who brought him up, of course, without a husband, how much love she had for her sons, and how much they loved her. And it seemed to, because I know there's that great loss for him as a 10-year-old, but seemed quite a stable upbringing.
Yeah, it seems from what I'm hearing from you, Bob, that he's given a real understanding of him holistically, as opposed to just the theory and just his teaching. You've got a better sense of who he was.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And also who his father was.
Yes.
Father was a real urban doctor, and a tremendously well-read and travelled urban doctor. And to travesty so early in life to catch that awful Spanish flu.
Yeah.
Left poor old Eric Leonard Bernstein, 10 years of age, without his dad.
Yeah. It's really interesting how, as you say, the scripts and the fact that he followed in his father's footsteps, the war, the fact he came back from the war and he ended up as a psychiatrist, doing insurance quotes, and wasn't he connected with Wilhelm Reich?
Yes. Now he interesting enough, because you might know more about William Reich than me, but William Reich was very much famous for his ideas of body armoring and the somatic world in the body. The idea that we retroflexion, all that, but also very famous for the orgasm box, or the idea of bound energy. And Eric himself was very fascinated with the ideas of Reich and the ideas of bound energy. And he goes on in his books, later books, especially the 1961 book, I think, talking about catharsis and the bound energy theory, which I think he read some of Reich's work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because Reich got imprisoned for his energy boxes.
Yeah.
They locked him up, and his son wrote a brilliant book called The Book of Dreams. And a further useful piece of information: it's based on Cloudbusting, the Kate Bush song. It's based on the son's book, A Book of Dreams, which she picked up and read. So there you have it. For those of you who want any trivia.
That's really interesting, because another thing that came clear in this book, which is how much he departed from psychoanalysis.
Yes.
Because of Eric Berne, was very drawn to psychoanalysis, with Paul Verdern being his analyst, Erik Erikson being his analyst.
Yeah.
And, from 1950 onwards, he started to drift away from psychoanalysis. And Terry Byrne, when doing the prologue to this book, talked about his father, that's Eric Byrne, really drifting away and wanting to provide a psychotherapy model that had accessible language and could do therapy quicker.
Yes. The whole thing is fascinating, and I'm very tempted to read it, because it does seem to be quite an important historical document, and I think it's unusual to really, really get under the skin of a theorist and really find out what got them from being who they were to producing the theory and the legacy they've left. I think it sounds like a real good book, maybe for students or practitioners who just want to get closer to the person, the man, to get closer to him.
Yeah, and understand the script.
Yes, yeah. Understand what got him to that place was the fact that he was living his father's and his grandfather's scripts to some extent.
So it's a fabulous book.
Right.
A fabulous book.
Yes.
For our 50th book.
Yeah. Well, it's a great review. We'll put a link, as we always do, in the link below, downstairs, and you can have a look at it and inspect it. And if you want to buy it, then there you go. Bob doesn't do these; aren't paid book reviews. Bob doesn't get any kind of fee from the book company, so he does it just for the love of books. And as always, Bob Cook, thank you very much.
Thank you.